You're listening to the CyberWire Network, powered by N2K.
Are lengthy security reviews pulling attention away from your security program? With the largest network of trust centers, Vanta can help you streamline security reviews to win customer trust, save time, and close deals fast. Proactively demonstrate security by showcasing key resources like your SOC 2 or ISO 27001 and provide real-time evidence for passing controls. And when a security questionnaire is required, Vanta takes the first pass for you. Visit vanta.com/cyber to take a self-serve tour. That's vanta.com/cyber. Microsoft makes recall opt-in. The Senate holds hearings on federal cybersecurity standards. Snowflake's scrutiny snowballs. The New York Times source code is leaked online. Ransomware leads to British hospitals' desperate need for blood donors. Cisco Talos finds 15 serious vulnerabilities in PLCs. Sticky Werewolf targets Russia and Belarus. Frontier Communications warns 750,000 customers of a data breach. Chinese nationals get prison time in Zambia for cybercrimes. N2K's CSO Rick Howard speaks with Danielle Ruderman, security GTM leader at AWS, about what keeps CISOs up at night. And DIY cell towers can land you in hot water. It's Monday, June 10th, 2024. I'm Dave Bittner, and this is your CyberWire Intel Briefing. Thank you for joining us here today. It is great to have you with us. Microsoft announced significant changes to its recall feature after receiving criticism from cybersecurity and privacy communities. Recall, which captures screenshots of users' activity every 5 seconds for analysis, will now be opt-in instead of default on Copilot Plus compatible Windows versions. This change aims to give users more control over their data. Pavan Davaluri, Microsoft's corporate VP for Windows and devices, stated in a blog post that the setup experience for Copilot Plus PCs will now clearly allow users to choose whether to enable recall. If not chosen, it will remain off. Experts have criticized recall as potential spyware, as it could silently store sensitive information like bank logins and passwords. While this data is stored locally and not uploaded to the cloud, it could still be accessed by hackers gaining temporary access to the device. To address security concerns, Microsoft will also introduce measures to better protect recall data. Users will need to authenticate via Microsoft Hello, using a PIN or biometric check, to enable or access recall. This data will remain encrypted until the user authenticates. Despite these changes, privacy issues remain. Users who enable recall may still be vulnerable to domestic abusers demanding PINs or legal actions that compel them to hand over their data. And in full disclosure, we state that Microsoft is a CyberWire partner.
We need effective regulations on cybersecurity, no question about that. But we need them to be efficient, adaptable, and coordinated all across different agencies. Harmonization and harmonizing these guidelines will make our government more efficient, help businesses compete on the global stage, and ensure that we're addressing cybersecurity threats in the most effective way. And that's why I'm working on legislation to establish a harmonization committee at ONCD that would require all agencies and regulators to come together, talk about cybersecurity regulations, and work on harmonization.
That's Senator Gary Peters, a Michigan Democrat and chair of the Homeland Security and Governmental Affairs Committee. He held a hearing last Friday to address federal cybersecurity standards and the challenges businesses face in meeting them. The hearing emphasized the need for Congress to pass legislation for a cohesive approach to cybersecurity regulations. Nicholas Leiserson from the Office of the National Cyber Director and David Hinchman from the Government Accountability Office discussed the difficulties in harmonizing these standards and their impact on businesses. Witnesses highlighted the burdens of multiple cybersecurity standards and the need for streamlined regulations. Senator Peters advocated for a harmonization committee to coordinate efforts. Leiserson pointed out that the National Cybersecurity Strategy and National Security Memorandum prioritize regulatory harmonization. The ONCD is developing a reciprocity framework for cybersecurity standards to reduce duplication and improve efficiency. Congress's role in enacting this legislation is crucial for a unified response to cyber threats. Cloud provider Snowflake is facing increasing scrutiny following a series of customer data thefts. Initially linked to Ticketmaster's breach, now LendingTree's subsidiary QuoteWizard also confirmed data was stolen from Snowflake. Snowflake attributed these breaches to customers not using multi-factor authentication, which it does not enforce by default. Snowflake acknowledged a former employee's demo account was compromised due to single-factor authentication. Despite notifying affected customers, Snowflake has not disclosed the number of impacted clients, though it has over 9,800 customers. Critics argue Snowflake should enforce MFA and reset passwords proactively. The company says they plan to require advanced security controls like MFA in the future, but has not provided a specific timeline. Internal source code and data from the New York Times were leaked on the 4chan message board after being stolen from GitHub repositories in January of this year. An anonymous user posted a torrent of a 273-gigabyte archive containing the stolen data, which includes source code, IT documentation, and infrastructure tools. The leak was discovered by VX Underground and confirmed by the Times to Bleeping Computer. The breach occurred due to exposed credentials for a third-party code platform. The Times stated there was no unauthorized access to its internal systems or impact on operations. This incident follows another leak on 4chan of Disney's internal documents, though it's unclear if the same person is responsible for both breaches. A ransomware attack on British pathology services vendor Synovis has disrupted blood matching in multiple London hospitals. The National Health Service urgently seeks O-positive and O-negative blood donors to address this issue. This June 3rd attack has delayed surgeries, organ transplants, and other procedures as hospitals cannot match patients' blood types as usual. In response, the NHS plans to use O-type blood universally for safety. They aim to fill 13,000 O-type blood donor slots immediately, with 3,400 needed in London. The attack, linked to Russian-speaking ransomware groups, has been described as a highly impactful cyber incident. The NHS cybersecurity team is still assessing the full extent of the attack. Cisco's Talos unit found 15 vulnerabilities in Automation Direct's productivity series PLCs, classified as high or critical severity. These flaws can enable remote code execution or denial of service attacks, risking costly industrial disruptions. Although typically not exposed to the Internet, about 50 of these devices might be online, as shown by a Shodan search. Automation Direct released updates and recommendations to address these issues. CISA informed organizations of these vulnerabilities in late May. Researchers from Morphosec observed the threat actor Sticky Werewolf targeting entities in Russia and Belarus, including public organizations, a pharmaceutical company, and a microbiology research institute. Initially detected in April of 2023, Sticky Werewolf recently targeted the aviation industry with emails supposedly from AO-OKB Crystal's deputy director. In this campaign, they used phishing emails with archive attachments containing LNK files pointing to a WebDAV server. Once executed, these files run a batch script leading to an auto IT script that injects the final payload. The malware used includes Radamanthys Stealer and Ozone Rat, facilitating espionage and data exfiltration. Although the group's origin is uncertain, there are possible links to pro-Ukrainian cyber-espionage activities. Frontier Communications is warning 750,000 customers of a data breach following an April cyber attack by the Ransom Hub ransomware group. The breach exposed personal information, including full names and social security numbers, but not financial information. The company has informed regulatory authorities and implemented additional security measures. Affected customers are advised to enroll in free credit monitoring and identity theft services provided by Crawl. Ransom Hub has threatened to leak 5 gigabytes of stolen data if Frontier does not respond by June 14th. A Zambian court sentenced 22 Chinese nationals to prison terms ranging from 7 to 11 years for cybercrimes, including internet fraud and online scams targeting Zambians and individuals from Singapore, Peru, and the UAE. They were also fined between $1,500 and $3,000. A Cameroonian was similarly sentenced. The group was part of a 77-member syndicate arrested in April for a sophisticated internet fraud scheme. Authorities seized over 13,000 SIM cards, firearms, and ammunition from the Chinese-run Golden Top Support Services in Lusaka. The syndicate employed unsuspected Zambians to conduct deceptive conversations using various platforms. Coming up after the break, N2K's CSO Rick Howard speaks with Danielle Ruderman, Security GTM Leader at AWS, about what keeps CISOs up at night. Stay with us. Struggling to secure on-prem apps with modern identity? Don't worry, you're not alone. Join industry leaders from Fortune 500 organizations to secure your apps on any cloud with any IDP, regardless of your environment's complexity. Meet Strata's identity orchestration platform, Mavericks. Say goodbye to the headaches of app refactoring and legacy tech debt. With identity orchestration, you can modernize legacy apps to use MFA or passwordless authentication in a few weeks, migrate from one IDP to another, and so much more without changing the app. No matter your IAM use case, Strata extends the value of your current identity investments. And the best part? You can try it for free today. Visit strata.io/cyberwire to share your biggest identity challenge, and they'll hook you up with a complimentary pair of AirPods Pro. Don't miss out. Visit strata.io/cyberwire. That's strata.io/cyberwire. N2K's CSO Rick Howard speaks with Danielle Ruderman, Security GTM Leader at AWS, about what keeps CISOs up at night.
For those that don't know, N2K CyberWire is an Amazon Web Services media partner, and in June 2024, Jen Iben, the CyberWire's executive producer, and I traveled to the city of brotherly love, the birthplace of the American Declaration of Independence and the U.S. Constitution, and the home of the Philly cheesesteak, the Eagles, and Rocky Balboa, that's right, the great American city, Philadelphia, to attend their AWS Reinforce conference and talk with senior leaders about the latest developments in securing the Amazon cloud.
My name is Danielle Ruderman. I'm a senior manager with the Worldwide Security Specialist Organization, and I'm at Amazon Web Services, and I've been there for over 7 years.
So, Danielle, we are here today because you're gearing up for the annual AWS Reinforce Conference, this year hosted in Philadelphia from 10 to 12 June. AWS Reinforce is a security-themed conference as opposed to AWS reInvent, which is a learning conference hosted for the global cloud computing community. So, what's the purpose of AWS Reinforce?
Well, I'm glad you asked about the purpose for AWS Reinforce. So, what's interesting is that I was actually on the ground floor when Inforce was started. And it's a great story because this really came out of a need and a desire from the security community. So that's where the idea came from. So our partners were very interested in getting together to really focus on security, identity, and compliance. And our customers were very interested in this. And we actually had a groundswell of interest before it even became an item at AWS. And then marketing saw that strong interest and they're like, all right, let's do it. And so we were the second paid conference at AWS, which is pretty exciting.
So you're the brain behind the AWS CISO Circles program. Okay, I love the idea of that. Can you give us a rundown on what that program is?
Absolutely. The AWS CISO Circle program is actually a really good example of the way Amazon works and how we're always working backwards from the customers. And so we had a lot of interest from customers and our AWS security teams over the years to try to bring together the CISOs and our customers, bring them together to have these kind of conversations behind closed doors. And given that signal that we were hearing from the field, I actually wrote a document. So again, very Amazonian way to approach a challenge is to write a document, right? And then I worked with our global executive marketing team. I worked with the AWS security office at the CISO, and we all came together and workshopped this document. And that resulted in our very first CISO circle, actually during the pandemic in November of 2020 with Steve Schmidt, who was then the CISO of AWS. So it was all virtual in the beginning, but we brought together just a mixed group of CISOs, and it was fantastic. And then that grew into what today is the CISO Circle program, which is in over 20 countries. And I think what's unique about this program is that it's really a chance for us to bring together our customer CISOs so that they can learn from each other and hear from AWS under NDA and under Chatham House rule, which, as you probably know, means that people can use the information that they hear in the CISO circle just without attribution. So you're not going to attribute it to a particular company or a particular individual. And so the nice thing about this is that security professionals, I don't think always have that opportunity to really speak candidly. And we've really created that forum. And our AWS security executives, our service team leaders have been very open and love coming to these events because, again, it's that chance to hear really candid feedback and talk about items like what's really going on in the CISO's world, what's going on with our roadmaps, and really a chance for us to share and be better at working together.
One of the things you discovered in that work is that CISOs from different sectors find solutions to common problems. And that aligns quite nicely with my own thinking that regardless of the size of the organization and regardless of the vertical, there are some first principle strategies that we all should be pursuing. The tactics we use to pursue those might be different because of our size and our vertical, but the goals should be the same. Is that what you think about that too? Is that what you mean by all that?
You're absolutely correct. So most of our circles are cross-industry, so it brings together CISOs from different backgrounds and different experiences. We do have a few that are industry-specific because there are times when it's helpful to hear from people in your industry. But for a large part, our CISOs do enjoy coming together and hearing from people with different backgrounds because, like you say, the fundamentals in security are the same. It's just how you apply it in your different environments. And we've even seen, I talked to a CISO from a pharmaceutical company who said that the best lesson she had was from a CISO from the auto industry who talked to her about how they manage their supply chain and their production line and how they secure it. And she said she was able to take that conversation and apply that to her pharmaceutical work. And she said she never would have thought to do that, to approach an auto CISO, but that meeting and that coming together gave her the opportunity to have those conversations. And that's what we're seeing. And that's really where the magic happens, right? When you realize that you can look cross-industry for ways to help raise your own security posture.
I had one of those things happen to me too. I was going to a dinner with a bunch of security professionals, and the woman in charge of the ESPN technology stack, her team was the one that figured out how to do the NFL games. You know, here's where the first down line is, how it's superimposed on, right?
Right.
And we were talking to her about, we were all saying, well, your team must be geniuses. This must be really high-end technical engineers. She goes, well, no, not really. I have a diverse set of people. And the smartest person on my team is a Russian literature major, right? And so I took from that, getting in with that group of CISOs, right, that I need to readjust who I think could be good for my team. So that's what you're talking about with these CISO circles, right? Getting different ideas.
Definitely. So a mix of experiences and backgrounds is really critical to sharing ideas. And I think that's what's really unique is when a problem that you never considered an answer to it's right there in the room in front of you. And we've had customers who have been exchanging emails when they're in the CISO circle together because they're like, okay, I need to learn from you. I need to take something away from this. And that's what we're here to do, right? We're really here to help the customers who are all using AWS be better together.
So since we're talking about diversity, while I have you here, okay, I know that one of your passion projects is diversity in the workspace, specifically diversity with women. And I've been doing this for a long time, and my peers and I have known about the problem of building diversified teams for well over a decade. And it isn't like we haven't tried, but it feels to me like we haven't made a lot of progress here. And I'm wondering if you have any good news on that front. Can you point me in the right direction?
Yes. So I know what we do is we're looking at what are the challenges that we have with hiring more diverse candidates. And there's a couple things that we've done. One is to take a look at your job descriptions. And that's the best advice I have. Like, read your job description. Get some diverse folks to read the job description for you and see if there's any words that might be a little off-putting to people from different backgrounds. I think we found, right, sometimes superlatives, like you put something in there like you want a rock star. If it feels like a very aggressive word, that might be a little off-putting to some people. So really scrub your job descriptions, because that's the first interaction that a candidate's going to have with your organization. The other thing is to think about calibrating your interviewers, right? Do you have diverse interviewers? You've got to think about that as well, so the candidate feels comfortable expressing all aspects of themselves. And are they calibrated to interview diverse candidates? There's two things that I've noticed in the interviews. Number one is sometimes people from certain countries, or sometimes women, will use the word we when it's really I did a thing. And if you don't stop to ask the candidate about that, you can walk away as the interviewer with the impression that the candidate never owned or did anything on their own. But I always tell interviewers, like, did you ask the question? Okay, you said we in this case. What part were you responsible for? And what part was the rest of the team responsible for? And sometimes you'll find that they were responsible for all of it, but it felt arrogant for them to say that out loud. And that's, like I said, cultural or gender. So that's a really important one to think about.
One of the things I hear you saying in the background there is that I think most of us feel like when we're trying to hire somebody, we're the ones that are trying to find the perfect fit for the team. But what you were describing, some of those things you recommended for everybody, was that you're trying to convince them, the potential employee, to come on board and not put them off. And so you should think about those kinds of things when you're doing going through the interview process.
Right. And think about the kind of questions that you're asking to make sure that you're thinking about that diversity in the candidate experience. Some of our new questions from, like, our Earth's Best Employer, like that's one of our new leadership principles. We specifically ask questions like, tell us about a time where you've helped someone who had, less authority or less power than you. Like, what are you doing to lift other people up? And we really want to look for those things. And that gives people who have that lens and real opportunity to shine.
As we've noted here at N2K CyberWire, you can't really talk about cybersecurity these days without mentioning generative AI. I think it's an actual law here in Maryland. And of course, the AWS Inforce conference is going to have a lot to say on the subject.
That's really been the number one interest from our CISOs around the world. We do take surveys at all of the events that we do, and starting probably Q2 last year, generative AI popped up as everybody's top concern. And so this has been a number one topic of a conversation in our CISO circles, primarily how they can help be that business enabler. How can they help the business use generative AI to really stand out in the marketplace?
So I've seen two versions of that. One, use generative AI to help configure your system better, as opposed to using generative AI to help your customers do things with your services. There's a difference between using generative AI to make you better at running the tools that you have, and then comparing that to maybe the data that we collect because of the service we provide might be able to help our own customers. And so are CISOs asking about both of those things?
Yes, absolutely. The number one question AWS is getting from customers is how to implement AI in their business securely. So that's their biggest concern. They're being asked by the board of directors, hey, what's our AI strategy? And this is a great opportunity for the CISOs to step up and be the ones who are helping craft that strategy and really being a true advisor to the business. And then, yes, as you said, the other thing is, hey, how are we as a business using these AI tools to help secure our own organizations? So there are multiple lenses on this question. And when we have these conversations in circles, we do clarify, like, all right, let's take some time and talk specifically about how you're implementing AI for your business, How are you working with the board of directors? How are you working with your peer executives? How are you unblocking AI so that your developers can be more efficient? And then, okay, now we can shift to some of these other topics, right? Because otherwise the conversation can go all over the place.
The conference is AWS Reinforce, hosted in Philadelphia this year from 10 to 12 June. Danielle, thanks for coming on the show and telling us about it.
Thank you. And I really hope anyone listening to this joins us in Philadelphia. We are running a CISO Circle that Monday on June 10th. We've got a great lineup. We'll be talking about generative AI and security, how to talk to your CFO, doing some other neat exercises. So hope to see everybody there.
Excellent. Okay, I'm going to be there, so I'm going to put that on my list.
Fantastic.
That's our own Rick Howard speaking with Danielle Ruderman from AWS. Rick and the N2K team are at AWS's Reinforce event happening this week. Stay tuned later in the week for their reports. And now, a word from our sponsor, Zscaler, the leader in cloud security. Cyber attackers are using AI in creative ways to compromise users and breach organizations. In a security landscape where you must fight AI with AI, the best AI protection comes from having the best data. Zscaler has extended its zero-trust architecture with powerful AI engines that are trained and tuned by 500 trillion daily signals. Learn more about Zscaler Zero Trust Plus AI to prevent ransomware and AI attacks. Experience your world secured. Visit zscaler.com/zerotrustai. And finally, British police nabbed 2 individuals for operating homemade DIY cell towers used to send phishing texts. These text message blasters cleverly dodged network anti-smishing controls, spamming thousands with fake messages posing as banks and other official entities. British law enforcement authorities noted the increasing cunning of cybercriminals, reminding everyone that legitimate organizations won't ask for personal information via text. To counter this, UK networks have a handy scheme, asking users to forward suspicious texts to them for analysis and potential blocking. Hoyong Zhu, age 32, was arrested and faces fraud charges, while another unnamed individual was arrested in Manchester. Authorities, including Ofcom and the NCSC, are investigating, but details are sparse due to the sensitive nature of the tactics involved. It's suspected that these devices could be IMSI catchers, popularly known as stingrays, sometimes used by law enforcement for intercepting communications by spoofing legitimate cell towers. There's no word on how exactly the suspects were tracked down, but being a longtime admirer of ham radio enthusiasts, part of me hopes that it was an old-fashioned fox hunt. And that's the CyberWire. For links to all of today's stories, check out our daily briefing at thecyberwire.com. Don't forget to check out the Grumpy Old Geeks podcast, where I contribute to a regular segment on Jason and Brian's show every week. And find Grumpy Old Geeks where all the fine podcasts are listed. We'd love to know what you think of this podcast. Your feedback ensures we deliver the insights that keep you a step ahead in the rapidly changing world of cybersecurity. If you like our show, please share a rating and review in your podcast app. Please also fill out the survey in the show notes or send an email to cyberwire@n2k.com. We're privileged that N2K CyberWire is part of the daily routine of the most influential leaders and operators in the public and private sector, from the Fortune 500 to many of the world's preeminent intelligence and law enforcement agencies. N2K makes it easy for companies to optimize your biggest investment, your people. We make you smarter about your teams while making your teams smarter. Learn more at n2k.com. This episode was produced by Liz Stokes. Our mixer is Trey Hester with original music and sound design by Elliot Peltzman. Our executive producer is Jennifer Iben. Our executive editor is Brandon Karpf. Simone Petrella is our president. Peter Kilpie is our publisher. And I'm Dave Bittner. Thanks for listening. We'll see you back here tomorrow.